Welcome everyone to today's live stream here at our lunch break. Look what just arrived. ThinkPad X1 Carbon, 6th generation or so. Yes, this is not the one just announced at CES or something that probably should appear on the market in a month's time or something. But nonetheless, as we are new to this review stuff here in between of our regular, more professional IT and programming content, I thought it is nice to take a look on. And especially this is something that I might get personally and I think should also be useful for many of you. So let's unbox this here. Not yet opened this before, so let's see how this looks. Although I personally find this unboxing slightly stupid, as if someone would be interested how the box looks like and you store it, either throw it away or lifting this box here. Look at this amazing packaging. Again, not that I would personally find this unboxing thing a little bit silly, but whatever. So yeah, 6 scan, but nonetheless, but the fun fact is, dear sir or madam, thank you for reviewing this. So this is a review unit for 4 weeks to test with no strings attached as usual, so I can say whatever I want. And here looks super nice in my opinion. And nonetheless, yes, this is the still current but soon to be replaced model, but in my opinion still super nice. Also probably deals to have on, so not that this would be too shabby. And also look at this. This should be, I think, probably 4K or something. And yeah, I have to say super nice in my opinion. Not really something to complain about here. And when we compare this, exceptionally, I took my Retina MacBook Pro here from the other desk that I'm usually not holding up here in the camera too often unless we swap here the battery. I also wanted to say a couple of notes here for choosing. This is slightly smaller, I think. So this is 14-inch, 15-inch, maybe smaller bezel in the meantime. Can we also focus here or maybe not? And some general notes I wanted to say regarding choosing MacBooks. A lot of people always ask me in the comments, I review the Lenovo ThinkPad L390 or ThinkPad, what laptop can I recommend? So the problem is that I usually find something to nitpick on each model, either not powerful enough or too large bezels or something. By the way, these bezels here are much smaller, so this is certainly super nice. I also like the power button here more at the L390, so of course half price entry-level model, the button was at the side. Also, when you compare this, for example, the Dell XPS 15 was also in theory quite nice, but the problem with the XPS 15 2-in-1, I probably also have to switch this to manual focus. No, not to have here more focusing challenges. So the problem with the Dell XPS 15, and again, these are really expensive machines, 2,000 euro or dollar, for the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 with hybrid AMD graphics. What drove me really nuts was the keys here, the arrow keys, and wow, this keyboard, in my opinion, this feels really solid. This is, I mean, not this butterfly shot, this is really seriously nice to type on. And yeah, why do I accept this reviews? By the way, fun fact, I did not even ask Lenovo for exactly this unit. I actually was thinking ahead for this year's model, and this is just, there you see the difference. If I don't even ask Apple, but for example, Huawei, they just plain out said no. So thank you for that. You probably don't want tech people to look on your laptops. But coming back to this point, if I buy a laptop for $2,000 there on the Dell side, I would not want to live with a keyboard where I get crazy. You have seen this. I made a dedicated video about this. In my opinion, this in 2019, you know, it's not 1984 as it people start to build the first portable machines. And in my opinion, there is no excuse for this Dell XPS 15 having this half-sized arrow keys here that I constantly keep pressing. You know, you edit spreadsheet, a Word document, either you are office worker, ISO editor or source code programmer. And the reason that I never noticed this, for example, with laptops here from Lenovo like this, is that these keys here, and are we completely entirely manual focused? Maybe. And the reason I never realized this here is that these keys have here this gap, and this is a huge difference, although this key is also a little bit small. But this is why I never, on such kind of keys, accidentally kept pressing page up and page down all the time. And I was honestly surprised that it was such a deal there with the Dell. And again, in my opinion, the big takeaway here is I would never buy for $2,000 or euros buy such a compromise where I get crazy. And this is for if I have no money and I buy a netbook for $250, then okay, the keyboard is shitty, but on a $2,000 machine, a setup where people can't really work with, in my opinion, not excusable. So maybe we also turned it on already. So this machine and starting price, I think, should be 1,367 US dollars there, if this is correct. Although this machine is slightly more specced out with Ultra HD something, 3000 whatever pixel screen. That certainly looks really good. It is a little bit glossy. Fun fact, usually you see the mirrors here, but with the display maybe we suspend this. If it suspends like this, or not energy saving. Actually, this is, usually I try very hard not to get the glare on the screen now in this particular setup. So there are the windows here, and yeah, it is glossy, which I'm usually not the greatest fan of, but at least in this camera angle. But the problem is, of course, you don't have much choice. You usually don't get that much less glossy displays. And I realized sitting here on this test lab, as this is not my main desk, sitting here even with this matte full-sized NEC and such displays, it is also annoying even if it's matte finish there. So yeah, not really sure what is the best recommendation there, but usually somehow I slightly prefer matte. But as I said, I realized this is not the most amazing thing. Comments in the audience. Richie says he's watching this on an X1 Extreme. Yes, thank you for reminding. The thing is, so I wanted actually to say this. They also offered me to review the X1 Extreme, and I've chosen the Carbon for this very simple reason that the Extreme is using NVIDIA graphics, and as most recurring viewers here like Danny, thank you, good morning, in the audience, realize we are not the greatest fan of NVIDIA because we are not fan of binary only drivers, and this is why I've intentionally chosen this one. I would personally, if this would be my money that I would spending, I would avoid NVIDIA like the plug, unless you of course are a Windows user or want to deal with binary only drivers. So from this standpoint, of course, this is not the very latest MacBook because I simply don't spend money on MacBooks anymore. And here you also see the difference. Although I tried to keep really good care of this, it shows the first signs of wear. Here is the first scratch. The ports are really scratched here. If this might be probably not the most visible unless we manual focus. This is also why I was never a fan of this aluminum, and I said this already many times, and I can repeat it here also, that in case this is probably was more visible with a, probably does it, yeah, actually this shows the zoom, this is actually not too bad here, this super macro view then. So yeah, the ports start to get really scratchy here because I plug it in and out in the office each and every day, because this is mostly my main driver use. So you see, even if you're super careful, although I never had some case here for this one, I had some kind of cases, the second skin, whatever stuff. Also, it has a dent here already, at least one. And I only show you this so prominently because I'm simply not satisfied. I know that many people, where is even the focus now? Hello, can we? Let me quickly try to focus here. And where is the dent? So this dent here, that is not the most visible on camera. This is what happens with aluminum cases. I'm not even sure how this dent happened. Maybe in my bag in an airport rushing pressing it in some overhead cabin or something. Also here's another little small scratch here, and this is 3 years old, and so I'm not sure how the ThinkPad will age. I will probably eventually buy a ThinkPad. So far these are review units. Can we also focus again? As I always said, these are review units that Lenovo thankfully provides here. And if you compare this, that we could also really focus, my dear camera. So this is extremely lighter, like this is day and night. Yes, this is previous generation MacBook, but the new ones are unusable. Butterfly keyboard and more peak bugs and whatever you name it. So much more lighter and slightly smaller. This is 15 inch to 14 inch. Also the bezels here probably, yeah, the side bezels here are 1 centimeter, here half a centimeter, 5 millimeters, just if you want to have some comparison. But again, so just a quick overview, just some initial unboxing. I will use it for some days and maybe I even try to make it my daily driver. Otherwise, port-wise, we have here USB-C, I would guess. Do we have here some... In the meantime, you need to be careful what you say, but yeah, this is USB-C. By the way, fun fact, I had this Lenovo L390 the other weeks and I charged it. Maybe I mentioned this in some live stream, but not as prominently. I have here this quick charger from this Samsung S10. You see I'm completely getting out of the Apple ecosystem here. 100%ly, slightly smallish to read here. 5 volt, 2 ampere. This would be a 9 volt something, so whatever the wattage is. 16 watt or whatever this was. And I wanted to say I charged when I traveled by train here through Germany the other weekend. I did not take this Lenovo charger with me and only used this Samsung charger to charge the ThinkPad, which worked. The charging time was something like, I don't know, 9 hours or something long. But it doesn't matter for me if you travel. So you need to try this. Don't trust my word here if this works for you. And also not sure if this lasts very long. But at least for my short traveling test time, I really liked this to travel light. And for me, this 10 hours or whatever, maybe for this might be longer. Charging time, not an issue. You charge it overnight in the hotel, you have one power supply less, or you take, of course, a high power supply that comes with your laptop and you charge your phone and smartphone from this. So this is probably the special docking connector thing, another regular super speed USB to plug in here any old device, HDMI for dedicated video, and on this side another USB port, and of course the headphone jack that we still love very much and will not get over. And here is some SIM card slot. Not sure if this spec comes with this integrated, but otherwise you can of course retrofit this yourself in the M2 slot. And this looks like, unlike the L390 where I stopped taking the bottom case off, this should probably come off very easily. Probably try this another day. And yeah, then it's time to plug in my portable SSD that right now I can't do because we are live streaming from it. And maybe I try to do another thing because I figured another in-depth tech thing here. An idea because I use this portable SSD that I already have hold into the camera for my portable computing needs also, not only when I travel somewhere to plug it in my parents' machine or some other customer's machine. For example, I work somewhere at some customer on-site for a day or something. It might actually be nicer sometimes to plug it into a machine, especially if I need a second machine. I need a second machine to dump some USB packets or USB network, you name it, and stuff like this, or work with embedded systems and so on. And then this portable SSD comes very handy. That I said also multiple times already, I don't over-optimize this anymore. I only optimize this for core to do, to plug it in each old machine, like old Macs and such. And one idea was, on some machines like my Microsoft Surface, I actually have the limitation of only one USB port. This is why I would never buy a machine with less than 2, preferable 3 USB ports. And I have a new idea. I use BetterFS on this already, and there's BetterFS, there are command line utilities, BetterFS send and receive. And I will probably try to make a setup to have a partition on this, like my Surface. I actually have a partition on my Surface for native Linux, but I usually use my portable SSD because there all my stuff is, like OBS for streaming and all the other latest and greatest tinkering stuff and all my files and so on, I will probably try to make a setup to have this BetterFS on my portable SSD to write a custom init.rd script before booting to send this to a local BetterFS subvolume, and then the problem is, of course, you do work, you lose your data, and the idea is there to use BetterFS send and receive on snapshots. So on boot with my portable SSD, send the BetterFS to the make a copy on the internal SSD, and then when you shut it down, or maybe even some days later, shut down multiple times, and eventually you shut it down with your SSD plugged in again and initiate the send all the changes between the subvolume snapshots to back to your portable SSD. Of course, this only works if you don't use your portable SSD in the meantime, but for me on the go with machines like the Surface with only one USB port and stuff like this, or otherwise for higher performance for the internal SSD and such, this might be a total amazing road warrior setup. Just the fun IT stuff we share here. And yeah, the only thing that I would point out here, so the first thing, super lightweight, super slim. I wonder how the thermal throttling will be. This is Core i7, and I usually don't need so much performance. This is also, if you ask me what laptop to choose, I recommend first choose what things you really need, personal preferences. This might be things like a headphone jack and a display and keyboard, for example. I would, as I said, I would not buy this Dell 2-in-1 with this maglev stuff, or the Dell XP13 with this half-sized arrow keys that I constantly keep pressing. And then the next thing, does it have stuff like headphone jack, USB ports? Then in keyboard in general, of course, is the keyboard something you can get along with if you try it in a store and you realize typing is annoying, then certainly don't buy it. And then if you have selected a couple of machines with port selection features, keyboard and display, then last but not least also the performance. For most people maybe not that important, because you might not do as much high performance work unless you do latest state-of-the-art 3D programming and neural network, artificial intelligence and stuff like this. So this is probably the criteria. You probably can live with a slightly slower CPU than just your build from source, and either imaging or artificial intelligence research is slower, but you can probably not live with something where the keyboard sucks, or the display is too small, or where the case is falling apart, or the hinges break. Although I should probably point out, for example, some people in the audience pointed out that they had some challenges with their Lenovo machines. I, of course, do not have any long-term experience here, but this is certainly something to look out for. Maybe Google this if this particular machine, usually probably the cheaper machines, not only from Lenovo, but also Dell, HP and stuff, you name it, or certainly all models from Apple have issues in quality, stuck keys and stuff breaking and scratching and such. But usually probably the more money you spend on Lenovo machines, the better the thing probably is. But again, Google this if you find serial defect issues, like serial defects on all our Macs we had, or other things like this. And this is probably what I would recommend. Again, I usually do not need so high performance. For most of the code editing, a Core i5 would probably be enough. But then there are days where I either compile Rust or Firefox or do YouTube streaming. The Lenovo L390 with the Core i5 was slightly on the border for YouTube live streaming, just to give you some more data points. But of course I will run this benchmark, see how this is coming in. And I would also expect the extreme addition to thermal throttle more with a dedicated GPU. I would guess, at least if you do the CPU intensive work, compiling software and similar things, that this non-extreme edition might thermal throttle less or something, unless they have different cooling setup. But again, for me, this NVIDIA options are out of question. And this is also, dear vendors, if any one of you listens, build usable keyboards. Like this certainly looks, this feels really nice, solid, really can't really complain here on the first look. And then also give us display options. I sometimes criticized, for example, some Intel only non-NVIDIA graphic models had not high resolution displays as option and stuff like this. By the way, okay, not touch apparently, I would guess, but I personally don't need touch. I use it very rarely on the surfaces from the point aside that it's broken on the surfaces because touch disease, made some videos about this. Don't need touch on a laptop, but leave me in the comments below what you think about this. Although I can get used to the surfaces, I started to touch it, move windows around, but again, doesn't have much value if it doesn't even work and the hardware breaks. So yes, this is a quick summary here of unboxing this. This thing looks really amazing. I really like this. Black and beautiful design, so much more stealth. And then this shiny aluminum. I said it already, I was never a fan of this for all the case scratchiness reasons, not even in PowerBook times. I never brought one. And even in PowerBook times, I got this electric fuzz. My brother once brought a 12-inch PowerBook and he sold it within a couple of months because he also didn't like it. And even there I realized I got this electric fuzz when it's connected to a charger, usually in foreign power supplies there in UK, USA and such. And in my opinion, you really need to be way more careful, and even then it scratches here. And they are not a huge fan. I said this already, in the winter it is cold, you travel with public transport, you unpack it, it's cold until it gets warm, then in the summer it gets too warm. So yeah, whatever. But leave me in the comments below if you like this aluminum. This thing here looks certainly amazing, super light, much more lighter than the MacBook, and it feels on the first, yeah, not really flexy, not that I want to destroy the demo unit, but yep, I will be really curious how this works out for me. I will probably try it to make this my daily driver also, because Lenovo actually, funny enough, they wanted the L390 back slightly faster because some print magazine colleague of us wanted to review it. Fair enough, it was not really the most matching machine for myself. And we have this here 1 week longer, so some 5 weeks instead of 3 to 4 weeks or something. Really shout out to Lenovo trusting us so much that they think it is good in our hands here for 5 weeks to test. This is not only that I think this is, for my personal taste, a very matching machine, and this is 5 weeks review time here. I will probably try to make this my daily driver, which I've not really done with the other machines. This means really working on this every day. Maybe I try to Hackintosh this or at least run QEMU in macOS in virtual machines for our commercial Mac software support, you name it. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this unboxing and quick overview. You have the chance to leave me in the comments below what you would like me to benchmark. Cinebench, open source, Linux kernel compilation, compiling Firefox, Rust, Node.js, you name it. And otherwise, I will probably enjoy, or at least I hope I will enjoy using this machine very much. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked this, and share, like and subscribe for all the next videos to come. Yeah, drop test. I think Lenovo will kill me if I drop test it, but working with this 5 weeks will probably be already enough of a tough test for it. I will probably just shut down the system. By the way, 981 drop frames, 2.3%, despite our OpenSSH. The first test here is of course compiling, how much does it thermal throttle, and then thermal throttling. And I will also open this. Usually I ask for permission. With the L390 I have not done this because I was running out of time. And this, I said this probably some minutes ago, this looks like this just comes off. So I will probably just take it off. Maybe I will be a nice citizen and shortly drop them an email, but usually they said no problem. To take a look inside what is user serviceable. And by the way, so this fits super nice in my office bag, slightly thinner, and I have a relatively compact office bag. When I travel, I sometimes even traveled with 2 machines. Especially when I travel for a week or 2, I usually need a second machine for some enhanced programming sessions and office workload. And then I usually pressed here my MacBook Pro and, for example, Microsoft Surface into my bag to just have a spare machine, a second machine for testing and such. So this will fit very nicely in my back. Yeah, drop test is probably out of question. You probably have to go over to Jerry Rick's Everything channel there and beg him for dropping the ThinkPad. But yeah, actually, to be fair, I dropped this here a little bit. This dent here is from dropping this from 30 centimeters. Where is it even on camera? So this can probably also zoom in here. So to be fair, this MacBook survived quite some stuff here. I mean, maybe it is a testament to that the quality is not the most shitty. Let's zoom in here to what I, by the way, really hate, that these cameras are mirroring the image when you flip the screen over. So then you always wonder who thought this is a good idea. And yeah, so there's some dent. I mean, not that this happened from 30 centimeter on a floor while packing my laptop. It slipped out of my hand. And yeah, then you have some aluminum dent there. And to be fair, yes, it survived here. This is approaching 4 years or something, maybe even 4 years already. But to be honest, I looked really after this. It's not like I've thrown this left and right, because I certainly needed this to work a couple of years. But yeah, I mean, but also to be fair, I've seen from colleagues, people we employ or work with and such, to be honest, this is the best looking laptop, MacBook, from all my friends and family. For example, I have one friend where he and his family, they are not really giving that a high priority. And so from one of my friends, you probably know who you are, these MacBooks really look always like they came out of, I don't know what, something scratched all over the place, left and right, and dents and whatnot. And so to be fair, you really need to look after your Mac if you want it to look like this after 3 or 4 years. If you give it not as much care as I do, then it will look like a piece of crap, in my opinion, in my experience. And yeah. So no drop tests and his. So yes, Luke, I read that your and no damage. That is good. Although I think you said as far as I remember, some of your ThinkPads had some issues, right? And also, yeah, I don't actually like this. I probably still need to work out on the best camera setup. I, by the way, have to redecorate the office sometime soon a little bit, that this looks more amazing. Don't like to show the floor here too much. Also, we have amazing floor here. And yeah, this is probably, I need to end this live stream. Otherwise, I can't plug in my SSD unless I make a copy and have a second one. And by the way, with this BetterFS stuff, with the send and receive, maybe you don't know this, this is also for offsite backups, to have here some more in-depth Linux geek stuff. So BetterFS, many people don't like BetterFS too much. I personally only had once an issue, so I had basically no issues, and we run BetterFS already on our server nodes for the most part. And the only issue, I mentioned this already in some live stream, is that I once plugged in my BetterFS SSD into some PowerPC cube or something I wanted to save a file on it, and this corrupted it somehow. I'm not sure if it was due to unreliable USB 1 or some PowerPC big Indianist glitch, but this is the only time I ruined a BetterFS. Otherwise, from all our normal server load, BetterFS so far had not an issue. And then it has snapshots. And you could theoretically, with my setup, so this send and receive is also for backups. As far as I've read, I've not used this, but you can use the snapshots to snapshot your BetterFS into this copy on write snapshots and then send the differences. So you can snapshot, send a copy to your offsite backup location, and then on the next day or whatever, when you want to send the next incremental update, you send the copy on write changes since the last snapshot. Relatively efficient as far as I've seen probably, and this is the send and receive that I would probably try to implement for my portable stuff there. And you could aim even for things like this if you work on a second machine. I said earlier, of course, you lose all the changes in between, but very theoretically you could even implement it like this for the case to send the changes. You copy this snapshot to your, like this machine here, the ThinkPad X1, for some weeks to test, and at the end you send this changes since the last snapshot back to your portable SSD, and very theoretically you could even continue working with this SSD on other machines if you do not need this data, for example for some internet browsing, and then delete all these changes since the last snapshot to still be able to copy, to transfer this state, because certainly this doesn't match, right? You can't, this is on block level or block or file level, and you cannot mix this. It's not like some three-way merge of source. And this is why in the case you could lose this data. For example, you plug in your portable SSD for just some light web browsing and you don't care about your web history or something. You can still wipe these changes and transfer the state from this machine, for example, back to the last snapshot point without all your random, not as important changes in between, just to give you here some more ideas of what IT people think about during their inspiring coffee breaks. Speaking of which, this was a coffee break. I hope you learned something and found this quick unboxing useful, but this is now really the time to really end the stream. Thank you all for watching, comments, and I hope to see you soon. By the way, does it still? Of course, maybe not the most smart YouTuber, but at least then the people stay for Easter eggs. Are we still stream resume? I just realized I have not unpacked the rest of the box in our enjoying the looks and this. So what else is in the box? Here's some, comes with a dongle, the Ethernet dongle that we probably missed from the L390. In that box it was not inside for whatever reason. Here's some sync paperwork, and then the power supply certainly. And then again, as I said, this unboxing probably for the most part not the most important, but certainly not the most pro tip. I usually keep the boxes in the basement in case we resell them, although most of, by the way, this is, so we have two Ethernet dongles. Why do we have two now? Funny. The L390 did not have one, and this one has two. But probably I would not realize that if you buy it, you probably don't get two of those. And then the USB-C power cords that you probably most likely can share with your other USB-C phones that are not iPhones. But all of you probably don't want to use an iPhone anyway. And yeah, this is the rest of the box. And I've actually not resold so much stuff in the last years, because I've also not purchased so much stuff in the last years, especially as you can't buy this Apple stuff anyway. But if you want to resell it, usually it gets better prices if you keep the original box, obviously. So yeah, this is this. The power brick here is slightly larger than the one in the L390. This was much smaller, but this is 65 watt. So no real surprise there. In my opinion, the only thing where Apple is still nicer, this power brick from Apple actually is not too bad. It's quite compact, because you don't need to carry this cable. Do I have? Actually, I only have the defect ones here next to this desk probably. So this is the only thing where, but then again, I rather have a larger power supply, because Apple ones are wall plugged in there directly. You probably have seen this. And this is probably the only thing where this is nicer, but then I rather have a usable laptop than the power supply. And on the other hand, if you can charge it at home, leave this big thing in your office or home office or wherever and charge it also a little bit with phone chargers. That worked for me the last time, as I outlined earlier. So yeah, I need a working keyboard, and if the charger is slightly larger, then so be it. But on the plus side, with all the USB-C stuff, you can just choose any other charger that you may like. I think Lou from Unbox Therapy recently had a very compact USB-C charger or something, if I remember correctly. So this is of course the added bonus of this USB-C standardization, that you can choose whatever you want to mix there. The only downside is I'm really wondering a little bit how long lasting this USB-C plugs are. Plugging this in every second day on my Samsung S10, I wonder slightly if this also, if this is the best thing to plug in 1000 times, and what loose connection tests in 5 years time. But then probably most people don't use vintage stuff as long as I use my SG Octane.